Her Royal Highness, the Princess Elizabeth, became Queen Elizabeth II.
70 years later, here at Windsor Castle, more than 1,000 performers, 500 horses and some very big names from around the world have joined together to celebrate a truly remarkable anniversary.
Tonight, ITV brings you the very first of several major events planned for the coming weeks, and we're settling in to enjoy a show fit for a monarch whose reign has been nothing short of history-making.
Welcome to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebration.
Hello and welcome to an historic occasion here at Windsor Castle as we celebrate the extraordinary 70-year reign of Britain's longest-serving monarch.
Well-wishers have arrived from across the globe to mark the Queen's incredible achievements. The 99 horses that have flown in from Oman took up 2 planes. There they are. There was a small argument over who got to sit in first class, but we're told they've made it now. The Queen's beloved horses will play a big part in what's been described as a gallop through history, from the reign of Elizabeth I through to Elizabeth II.
It'll include everything from gunpowder plots to Arabian adventures, with some very familiar faces taking on key roles, including Dame Helen Mirren as Elizabeth I and Omid Jalili as a herald who'll lead us through all the action.
An eclectic night of entertainment, fit for a queen, and the big names don't end there. Guests, hosts will include Damian Lewis, Adjua Ando, Martin Clunes, Alan Titchmarsh, and even Tom Cruise. And how's that for a mixed bag?
Tom Cruise. We'll also have music from the likes of Catherine Jenkins, Kiara Settle and Gregory Porter. And if that wasn't enough to keep us going, we'll be hearing from the national treasures like Sir David Jason, Sir Mo Farah, Anton Deck and Baroness Tanni Gray-Thompson as well.
There are hundreds of military personnel ready for the Queen's arrival. So, as the anticipation mounts, let's remind ourselves why we are here tonight with a story that began 70 years ago. On the 6th of February 2022, the Queen celebrated her Platinum Jubilee, marking a historic milestone of 7 decades on the throne.
I think I might just put a knife in it.
I think that's a really good idea.
The Queen first came to the throne in 1952, making her both the longest reigning British monarch and the longest serving female head of state in history.
When you think how young the Queen was when suddenly my grandfather died, to be required to take on such an enormous task. To have met that challenge the way she did is truly remarkable. It appeared effortless, but it jolly well isn't, of course. In all these years that the Queen has been on the throne, that in itself is a huge achievement. Coping with so many different challenges and complications and always being there, really, in that remarkable way.
Part of Her Majesty's role is to publicly represent the nation's mood at times of celebration, commemoration and sporting events.
Bobby Moore led England up to the Royal Box, these winners of the World Cup.
Recently, she urged Britain to stay strong during the coronavirus pandemic. Over the decades, many famous faces have met the Queen. Even a certain secret agent.
Good evening, Swan.
And Queen Elizabeth II has been served by 14 prime ministers.
I'm sure everybody's unusual.
The Queen has seen more of the world and its people than any other head of state and has engaged with them like no other monarch in British history.
Well, of course, it was very interesting being able to go and see
the people who come to the coronation see them in their own countries.
From Commonwealth tours to state visits and meeting with world leaders.
The Queen came ashore and greeted the Emir, who towered under her.
And over the years, she's formed a special bond with many of them.
Our relationship is one of friendship.
Meeting 13 US presidents during her reign.
The United States remains our most important ally.
Is that decaffeinated?
No. This is ordinary. This is for the Queen.
Her Majesty has constantly juggled her family life, including her 73-year marriage to the late Duke of Edinburgh, with her responsibilities as head of state.
I mean, luckily I'm a quick reader, so I can get through a lot of reading in quite a short time.
Her Majesty has worked tirelessly to prepare the monarchy for its future.
It's her quiet guidance. It's sometimes never seen, but it's always there. And I think that has allowed me personally to explore and understand, more about who I am and what I have to do.
Crisscrossing the world, flying the flag for Britain, and bringing the Commonwealth family together. A remarkable lifetime of duty and public service to us all.
Some unforgettable moments there, and a real reminder of the Queen's lifelong dedication to the people of the UK, the realms and the Commonwealth.
Well, Her Majesty's life of service is just one of the reasons why so many wanted to take part in tonight's event. We've moved inside. We're joined by somebody who will have a huge part to play this evening, so no pressure. It's actor and comedian Omid Jalili. And welcome.
Resplendent.
Do you normally wear this on a Sunday
evening?
This is the Herald's costume. The Herald was always a friend and a confidant to the monarch of the time, and this was the only thing that fit me. And apparently it was worn by Timothy West and as Henry VIII in 1979, and I can tell you it still smells of tinned salmon.
What's your job then this evening? We've been watching you over the past couple of days.
Well, my job is to actually, it's different from the host. The hosts kind of do all the presenting, but the Herald kind of comments on what's going on and keeps the audience kind of connected to the action, because it's not just, as you can see, it's not just horses. There's comedy, there's drama, there's amazing music, and then the Herald kind of keeps everything together.
And what was it like when you were asked to do it? I mean, what does it mean to you to be taking part? And it's a bit of history tonight, isn't it?
It is. I think it's everyone in the cast is very aware of the occasion, because this isn't just a once-in-a-generational event. This is something that will probably never happen again. And it's a real chance to be part of something that we know was designed to give Her Majesty a real fun night. She loves horses, she loves drama, she loves comedy. So it's to be part of something like this is history-making.
And you got some big laughs as well.
Yes, Prince Edward said to me, I've been here for many years. No one's had a single laugh. How do you do it? What are you doing? What's going on? He's a bit annoyed by it, actually.
And we've had a variety of members of the royal household and their guests here this week. Just take us through what you've seen from your position.
Yeah, it's great because we can see them. We had Princess Anne was there yesterday, and she looked visibly moved by a few things, and she was laughing. And she afterwards as well said to me, she said to me, did you seriously volunteer to do this? Why would you want to do this? I said, it's an honour, because it's all madness, but you did very well. Thank you, we loved it. And she goes, Mama will like this. That's the thing. It's designed for the Queen.
And it is all of the things that the Queen loves. Will you change your show at all because Her Majesty is in the audience this evening?
No, I think that at the end of the day, it's the horses that matter. And it's quite funny, some of the horses go walkabout. They lost one of the horses today, and they found him a mile up the road outside his stable trying to catch up with Eurovision. It was hysterical. They just found him. It was amazing.
And for you, what are the things that you've enjoyed and that you've watched? Because there's some things that will strike awe into you.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, there are people watching this. You know, Britain is such a diverse place. There are people who love the monarchy, people who don't. My
Commonwealth Youth Choir with an average age of 11. There are 54 of them representing each nation of the Commonwealth.
Well, the song they're performing is believed to be a particular favourite of Her Majesty's. It was written by Gary Barlow and Andrew Lloyd Webber as a celebration of the Commonwealth, and the lyrics are fitting for tonight. This is Sing. It's magic. The incredible voice of Kiara Settle, along with the Commonwealth Youth Choir. Stunning.
It was lovely, wasn't it?
Great start.
They'll all have memories for the rest of their lives from that. They were singing their hearts out. It was wonderful. It's time now for a quick break, but when we come back, just one of the biggest film stars on the planet to drop by to celebrate the Jubilee with us. Tom Cruise will be here. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebration. It won't be long until Her Majesty arrives in the arena behind us, but right now we're joined by a pretty special guest.
Well, he's one of the biggest movie stars in history. Top Gun, Jerry Maguire, Mission Impossible. I would name them all, but would be here all night. Welcome, Tom Cruise.
Thank you very
lovely
much. Thank you, Julie. Thank you for having me.
Fancy seeing you here.
Fancy seeing you here. You look lovely.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely lovely.
There are some very delighted people in Windsor this evening because you walked here. You came through the town, met everybody.
Yeah, it was lovely.
Yeah.
It's lovely. This is a wonderful, wonderful event. I'm very honored to be here. It's a real privilege.
What made you say yes to this one?
Well, how can you... No, I was just very honored at the moment. I mean, she's just a woman that I greatly admire. I think she's someone who has tremendous dignity, and I admire her devotion. What she's accomplished has been historic. And I just remember always as a kid, you know, seeing photos of her, and I've traveled around a lot as a kid, and I came to England. I started making movies here in 1982. And when I started producing movies, even before I just brought them here to England, because I liked their crews and the people and the generations of family that I've worked with, these crews. And I love the history, and I just have great respect for her. So when they asked, I instantly said, yeah, it'd be my honor to be here.
You could hardly get a more British occasion.
I know, it's
How
lovely.
are you anticipating this, being in that arena?
Oh,
it's extraordinary. There's 4,000 people there already. And
it's wonderful. Well, I really love the tradition.
Yeah.
And what a moment.
Well, you are
What
going
a
to
moment.
get a moment tonight because you are introducing the King's Troop,
Yes.
Royal Horse Artillery, and they are fast.
Yes.
I mean, to be that close to it is going to be quite extraordinary.
I've seen them on television before, but I've never seen them in person, so I'm really looking forward to seeing them. Looking forward to being part of this.
And not a bad backdrop, really.
No, not bad at all. That's a lot of history there. 1,000 years.
Yep.
The kitchen's been open for 1,000 years. That's a good restaurant in there.
Yeah.
So I hear.
Yeah, very good.
You speak of your admiration for Her Majesty the Queen. What do you think she means to the people of the US? I mean, very famously, she rode her horse in the grounds here with Ronald Reagan in the 80s. She's been backwards and forwards. She's met so many of your presidents in her lifetime.
Presidents, world leaders, people of all walks of life. I think that not just America, but the world knows, as I said, dignity and devotion and kindness. Someone who I think that's what I've always felt about her. But someone that understands her position and held it through a history that's just been extraordinary the past 70 years.
Well, you met her husband, the
Yes.
Duke of Edinburgh. What did you talk about?
That was lovely. I was at a charity event that I was asked to go and speak at, and so there's a moment he and I had. We were, of course, talking about pilots, you know. So we had to talk about helicopters, and he was telling me the wonderful story of how he got the first helicopter into Buckingham Palace during her coronation. Fantastic story. Fantastic story.
He couldn't have told you about
I was like this close to going, you know, I'd like to land a helicopter. If you ever need someone to pick you up, I've got a helicopter, and I think I could put it right there, you know?
Which brings us
very neatly to a moment. Because,
we both went to see Top Gun Maverick last week, and as, you know, sort of big fans of the original, if I'm honest, Tom, we were terrified because I thought, if I don't like this, what are we going to say if we didn't like it? It is incredible. It's everything you want it to be and more. And for you, I would have thought a very, very important movie to get right.
Very. I mean, every film I make is very important, but this one people have been asking for decades.
Your family have been asking.
My family, I'm like, listen, and every time I'm asked, I'm like, I don't know how to do it. And I would lay there in bed, and I started thinking. And so for decades, I've been thinking about what could I do? what would the story be? How could I film? So you'll see in my career, there's movies that I was aerial photography, and I had a concept of how I wanted to approach it. For 10 years, I said, look, if I'm going to do it, here's the standard at which it has to be.
There we are. Well, it was on the 6th of February this year that the Queen became the first British monarch to celebrate a Platinum Jubilee. Messages of congratulations have since poured in from around the world. But here are some of our very own national treasures to tell us just what the Queen means to them.
If I could use one word to describe the Queen, it would be inspirational.
For 70 years, with such extraordinary dedication and devotion, is without any precedent.
She's the sort of standard of what Great Britain stands for.
Reassuring. Yeah. And makes you proud to be British, I think.
I'm just blown away by her presence, her grace.
I admire her dedication to duty. I mean, even now, at 96.
And to be in that job for 70 years and still going strong and keep on smiling, she's an icon.
Every time I've had the privilege of meeting her, you feel really special in that moment, and she makes everybody feel like that.
Her compassion and her respect and her delicious sense of humour.
She doesn't need to say, yes, Queen.
No, she knows she's
it.
the Queen, but she likes people to be put at their ease and not be overawed by having the monarch in their presence. And that's really nice, I think.
To take on the responsibility that was handed to her on her father's death was tremendous. And how many people of that age do you know that could do anywhere near of what was expected of her? She showed such mettle. Wonderful woman.
I think the Queen means survival to me.
The Queen means continuity. She means everything about dedication and how a job should be done perfectly.
Her quote to the nation and to the Commonwealth that she would serve her people her whole life, whether it be short or long, is breathtaking.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service.
We can't remember a time when there wasn't Queen Elizabeth II on the throne. So, you know, for us, she's just always been there, always been solid, always been stable.
The Queen means to me Great Britain and the Commonwealth and goodwill to all nations.
She's done it unselfishly. She's done it not only in this country, not only the way she's seen in this country, but worldwide.
A remarkable person who has transcended time, who moves with the time, who has a complete sense of responsibility and commitment to her country, and you feel that and you see that.
She's an example to us all about how you can be dedicated to something, whether it's your job, to life, to your religion, to whatever. But dedication, which means, I suppose, you put that first.
I see how much pressure there is on her, but you let she be herself and just lead it.
For me, the Queen's legacy is about an individual who has the ability to bring people together, who can be a central focus.
You always do feel that in times of real and serious trouble, that the Queen is there.
She's like everybody's really favourite grandma, isn't she? She's kind of like, you look at her and think, oh, she's lovely, isn't she?
Yeah.
Let's go around for a cup of tea and a slice of cake with her.
I just take off my hat to her. I just think she's a real geezer.
Queen Elizabeth I, you did well. Queen Elizabeth II, wow, you knocked it out of the park.
She sure did. A big thank you to all the national treasures who took part there. And speaking of national treasures, here we have another one for you who'll be appearing in the show a little later. Alan Titchmarsh.
Hello. A friend of mine said to me the other day, you're not a national treasure, you're a national trinket. as much as I can.
There was in the lead up to the launch of this show, and when the billing was announced, the fact that Tom Cruise would be on the bill, and Helen Mirren and your good self, I just wanted to make sure you got your selfie.
I did. My wife said to me, she's only ever asked for 2 selfies. One was Hayley Mills, which I got because I interviewed Hayley a while ago. And I mean, you know, we are asked for selfies the whole time, which is lovely. It is not a problem. I'm a bit reluctant to ask them myself. She said, if you get a selfie of you and Tom Cruise, I'll take the grandchildren off the screen. I'm going home with this selfie that I've just got downstairs. He's so nice, isn't he? Charming.
Lovely man. But let's talk about you, because you've been here. You've been here all week.
Yes.
You know this show inside out. There is it's a different show this evening because it's been done for Her Majesty. But for you, how have you found it? Because there are some wonderful moments.
I think in a way we always do. They're all for Her Majesty, really. We're in, as the Duke of Edinburgh said to me once, and I said, it's very good of you to come, because I've done it for 10, 12 years, the sort of pageant bits here. It's in our back garden, isn't it, really? Yeah. And I think that's what you feel. You look up, and as you can see, the backdrop is Windsor Castle, the Royal Standards flying up there, and the Queen's big thing is horses. And for her, this is a highlight in the year, in the same way that Royal Ascot and the Derby are. And what people are surprised to find is that the Queen wanders around the showground here with a headscarf and a mac on, with, you know, people around her. But you're leaning on a fence, looking at show jumping in a ring, and suddenly you look to oh, hello, ma'am, and there she is, and watching the horses. It's a real passion, and there's a kind of love about this place and all the horsey folk, and I use horsey folk not in any way in a disparaging term. People who love horses, and I've been a member of the Royal Windsor Horse Show for a long time now. They're lovely folk, genuine folk, loads of farmers here, and it's a special celebration.
And it is amazing, isn't it? Because around this whole arena, those sort of great encampments with horse boxes and people camping out, and it's got this incredible sort of atmosphere, and people have travelled from far and wide. I mean, they've come from Azerbaijan, they've come from Oman to bring presentations and displays to Her Majesty. This is something that is an enormous global draw now, because it's such a special occasion for the Jubilee.
It is, and when you stand and look at that arena and what's in it, and where, as you say, everybody's come from, it's an enormous celebration of equine skills, of horsemanship, but of people with a common bond getting together for one person that they revere above all others. And this is a remarkable year, 70 years, for a remarkable woman whom I've met quite a lot and been bowled over by, because she is such ferociously good company. And, you know, you're aware of who you're talking to, sometimes quite quietly, not necessarily in a big public event. And she has enormous quiet charisma, like Nelson Mandela did. You know, you talk to him, and he has a kind of grace, and the Queen's the same, and she's collared all her life for so long.
It's we were talking to Tom Cruise.
Such a shameless name
about this at the backdrop. There will have been thousands of pictures taken by tourists of Windsor Castle, and it is that draw of the royal family, principally the Queen, that extraordinary building, that does make us very special.
It does make us special, and it's important in our lives, particularly this past couple of years, that we have special. It's often underrated and it's poo-pooed by intellectuals. It matters. It is at the core of our very being. The fact that we have a sovereign who has reigned over us for 70 years is enormously impressive. It's unique. It's never happened before. It's unlikely to happen again. It doesn't mean that we've got to be brainless if we just, oh, it's quite nice. I mean, there's something deep in the British psyche. We are an island race. We've done the oddest things over the years, some good, some not so good, but we have an identity, and that identity and heart and soul is embodied by Her Majesty the Queen. And if we don't know our own family history, we know hers, and she in a way shares her lineage with us, and her history is our history, and that matters to us, whether we're conscious of it or not. It's there.
There's some really special moments, aren't there? Just briefly, Alan, there's a moment when we see some of the Queen's own ponies here. Just talk us through that.
It's at the very end of the show, and it's the section that I shall be doing tonight. And it's the fact that this is a very large part of her life. She's a very family woman, but she's also a horsey one. We all know she loves horses, she loves racing. And it's her ponies and horses that come on at the end. And there's some very moving moments. I'm not going to say much more about that, but it's really quite emotional. It's been emotional for the family all the week.
Yes.
And I've met them afterwards when they've come off. And there've been a few damp eyes.
What brought it here to the Princess Royals?
Yes, and the Countess
night.
of Wessex too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Enjoy the show this evening.
I shall. It's been a lovely week. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's
I hope
lovely
you
to
enjoy
see
it.
you.
It's a special show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great to see you.
Right, it's time for a quick break. When we come back, the guest of honour takes her seat for the show. The Queen is en route. We'll be back. Welcome back to Windsor Castle for this very special celebration of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. There is a real buzz of excitement here in Home Park. Her Majesty is due to arrive very shortly.
4,000 people waiting expectantly, as we all are, for the Queen to make her appearance on this historic occasion. As you can see in here, the arena filled with her military personnel ready to greet Her Majesty. The Queen is their Commander-in-Chief. They all swear allegiance to her, and they have done for 70 years.
The Queen will arrive escorted by the Household Cavalry, made up of two of the oldest and most senior regiments in the army, the Life Guards and the Blues and Royals. Greeted by two Mounties who've flown in from Canada, especially for tonight. She's welcomed by the former Comptroller of the Royal Household, Lieutenant Colonel Sir Andrew Ford, and Simon Brooks Ward, the mastermind behind what we'll see in the arena tonight.
And what a sight that is. So many have been longing for this moment, all those who've been preparing for this special historic occasion. Her Majesty the Queen there, accompanied by the Earl of Wessex, who is now, of course, the President of the Royal Windsor Horse Show. And what a great sight that is.
Of all the events in Her Majesty's calendar, this is the one she doesn't miss. She's attended every single horse show since its inception 79 years ago. And let's face it, a number of the guests we've already talked about have discussed the horses. The Queen's lifelong passion for horses is well known. She learnt to ride when she was only 3 years old. Her first pony, Shetland, called Peggy, was given to her on her 4th birthday by her grandfather, King George V.
One of her most iconic horses was Burmese, a half-thoroughbred, half-Hanoverian black horse, gifted to her by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police back in 1969. They greeted her, of course, when Her Majesty emerged from her Range Rover a few moments ago. She rode Burmese side saddle during Trooping of the Colour for 18 consecutive years.
In recent years, the Queen's chosen to ride the smaller native fell ponies, due to them being that little bit closer to the ground, and perhaps the most famous being her trusty mare, Carden Lima Emma.
Lovely image there of the Queen riding out in Windsor Great Park, a short distance from where we're sitting here. And of course, her interest in horse racing stems from an early age too. She has an almost encyclopedic knowledge of thoroughbred bloodlines. Apparently, it's her lifelong dream to breed the perfect racehorse. It's often been said that if she were not the Queen, she would almost certainly have become a racing manager. In a documentary in the 70s, she said, "My philosophy about racing is simple. I enjoy breeding a horse that is faster than other people's." Simple as that.
Via the Royal Stud at Sandringham, she's achieved just that. So far, winning over 1,600 races, including victories in each of the British classics, with the exception of the Epsom Derby.
Her first big win at Oriel was inherited from her father, King George VI, claiming victories in the Coronation Cup and the Queen Elizabeth Stakes.
Highclere was another of her most famous winners, taking the 1,000 guineas and the Prix de Diane in Paris, as was Dunfermline, the horse that won 2 classics, the St Leger and the Epsom Oaks, in the same year, ridden by the great Willie Carson in 1977.
And just a few weeks ago, on her 96th birthday, this was the birthday image that was released by the royal household. The Queen pictured with Buybeck Nightingale and Buybeck Katie, her beautiful fell ponies.
She also, I think, won first prize with one of her ponies this very week, so the success continues.
Your Majesty, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your first host for the evening, Damian Lewis.
Your Majesty, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this very special night of music, military pageantry, equine theatre, laughter, and our very own Queen's players. It is a veritable gallop through the history of these isles and the monarchs and heroes who are now part of our national culture. We'll begin and end our journey with 2 remarkable queens, both called Elizabeth. We begin with Queen Elizabeth I, Queen of England, Wales and Ireland for over 40 years. She led our nation through all our crises with determination, dedication and commitment to her subjects. Literature, arts, military prowess, trade, science and exploration were the foundation stones that made these tiny islands great, and it was all as a result of this remarkable woman's leadership. Surrounded by a wealth of talent, including privateers such as Drake and Hawkins, playwrights like Shakespeare and Marlowe, explorers including Raleigh, statesmen like Cecil and Walsingham, the hero of our story was ably supported. It truly was a golden age. For centuries, heralds have been royal messengers, and we have a right royal messenger for you tonight. Leading our Queen's players, please welcome Omid Jalili.
Your Royal Highnesses, my lords, and the rest of you. What an honor it is to be here tonight, to add a little color to the celebrations, and also humbly provide someone to blame in case all goes horribly wrong. Let us begin. The time was 1588. Proof, if it was ever needed, that one should never buy a second-hand digital watch on eBay. The joke construction of that was written by a man on stage here tonight. Please will you welcome Mr. William Shakespeare. England was a land steeped in political intrigue, with the threat of disease from overseas. Our leaders constantly arguing with Europe. Back then, we were a nation alone. Not like it is today at all. And we were facing the Spanish Armada. With the Armada anchored off the French coast, reports are coming in of a massive wind in the Channel. We've sent in the fireships, scattering their fleet with our pyrotechnics. We never wanted this. The Spanish came here to give us hell. And by George, we've given them hell back. And how? Yes!
During this time, Queen Elizabeth I stood fast with her subjects. As the damaged Armada approached the east coast of England, the Queen prepared to face the invading Spanish army with 4,500 troops at Tilbury. She made what is now considered to be one of the most inspiring and motivating calls to arms ever to be spoken by a monarch.
Let tyrants fear. I have always so behaved myself that, under God, I have placed my chiefest strength and safeguard in the loyal hearts and goodwill of my subjects. And therefore, I am come amongst you, as you see, at this time, not for my recreation and disport, but being resolved in the midst and heat of battle to live or die amongst you all, to lay down for my God and for my kingdoms and for my people my honor and my blood, even in the dust. I know I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and a king of England, too!
Join us after the break for a spellbinding performance by the Household Cavalry musical ride, plus Gregory Porter and Adjua Ando take to the stage. Hampton Court Palace, the lavish home of the Tudor dynasty. After 118 years, the end of the Tudor line came with the death of Queen Elizabeth I in 1603. She'd been a strong female presence on the throne and was beloved by her people. Known as the Virgin Queen for her reluctance to marry, she had no direct heirs, so it was the turn of the men to take power. In 1603, James VI of Scotland succeeded to the English throne and became the new James I of England with great celebration. Soon after taking the throne, the king announced his sponsorship of Shakespeare's theatre company, and it's here in the great hall that his plays were performed to the royal court.
Methought I heard a voice cry, "Sleep no more, Macbeth does murder sleep."
With a new reign and a promise of a more tolerant society, Catholics across the country had hope for the end of the religious divisions that had seen them persecuted for so long. After all, the King's mother, Mary, Queen of Scots, had been a devout Catholic. But the Protestant James turned out not to be so tolerant. Prosecutions soon grew in severity for those who remained loyal to the Catholic Church. Catholics now found their hopes crushed, and in 1605, Guy Fawkes and fellow Catholic conspirators attempted to blow up Parliament and assassinate James I. Fawkes was nominated to light the fuse, but after an anonymous tip-off and a search of the cellars, he was caught red-handed and taken to the royal bedchamber to be interrogated by the king himself before being imprisoned in the Tower of London. He was swiftly tried and convicted of treason and hanged with his fellow conspirators. To celebrate the fact that the king had survived, people lit bonfires around London, and Parliament passed an act to enforce an annual public day of thanksgiving for the plot's failure, Guy Fawkes Night, something we celebrate to this day.
The nation mourned the departure of their beloved queen in 1603. James VI of Scotland ascended to the throne, and in the Act of Union, 4 nations, Ireland, Scotland, Wales and England, became one under King James I.
The reign of James I was beset with troubles. The notorious gunpowder plot was just one of them when Guy Fawkes tried to blow up Parliament, a famous British failure still celebrated to this day. For other countries, failure is a cause of national disgrace. For the British, it is an excuse for a party!
Just when the nation believed itself to be stable, the English Civil War resulted in the crown being lost. As Charles I went to the scaffold, gaining the dubious accolade as the only English monarch to be publicly beheaded, he spoke these immortal words.
I go from the corruptible to the incorruptible.
The Lord Protectorship under Oliver Cromwell didn't endure for long. The country yearned for the return of its joyous culture and tradition. 21 years after his father's demise, Charles II rode into England and a new society was born.
After puritanical Britain, we really arrived at cool Britannia. As Charles I had ended in tragedy, so Charles II began in triumph. We'd had enough of the rotten Roundheads, and we were ready for the royal rock and roll. And though it wasn't time yet to uncork the corgis, we did have a healthy sprinkling of spaniels. My goodness, look at them. Look at those doggies. Creating the glorious gold uniforms of the Household Cavalry Mounted Band, Charles II was the RuPaul of royalty.
Your Majesty, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the oldest mounted guards of their Majesties through the centuries for the musical ride of the Household Cavalry Regiment, accompanied by Gregory Porter.
Waterside, the musical riders first performed at the Royal Tournament during the reign of Queen Victoria in 1882. Competition to get into the cavalry is fierce. All successful applicants have to go on a 6-month riding course. They train intensively for at least a month to prepare for the musical ride.
Actually, we saw some of their colleagues earlier. The Household Cavalry are the Queen's official bodyguards at ceremonial functions.
Trying to one, I grow weary. Trying to walk, and I grow faint. I long to soar on the wings like an eagle, but I look down, I'm afraid. I'm afraid. When you lifted me higher out of the fire, out of the flames, I lost the feeling you give me meaning again, singing revival, revival song. I'm singing revival, revival song. I tried to find you, lost my way, walked through the darkness in search of day. I followed your footsteps to the gates of the city. I saw your face, oh, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid.
What a colourful display. Golds, blues, greens and browns. And that's just my codpiece. Matron. Meanwhile, in France, Louis XIV was building Versailles and called himself the Sun King. Louis XIV is still influential today. His legacy lives on in the hairstyle of Brian May.
The equivalent of the household cavalry in France is La Garde Républicaine, performing in uniforms reminiscent of the time of Louis XIV. Please welcome the elegance of La Maison du Roi, the House of the King.
La Garde Républicaine was created by Napoleon in 1802. They are the modern incarnation of the historic military corps that have protected Paris since the earliest kings of France. Duties today include providing security for important foreign guests and for key buildings like the Élysée Palace.
As you can imagine, this routine is incredibly difficult. It takes a huge amount of training to pull it off. La Garde Républicaine consists of 12 horses and riders. Horses came over by ferry. The riders hopped on the Eurostar. Each rider is responsible for picking up their horse's manure after training. It's like an ecological fact for you here. And because it's all recycled, the mushroom growers of Paris collect it twice a week and use it as fertilizer. So remember that next time you're having mushrooms in Paris. after the break, performances by the Royal Cavalry of Oman, the Azerbaijan equestrian and dance display, plus Martin Clunes takes to the stage.
Diplomatic, missionary and military organizations spent centuries discovering, exploring and creating trading partners that have stood the test of time. Captain Cook, Captain Franklin and Captain Bligh in their ships discovering the Northwest Passage, Australasia and Polynesia.
Mr. Pascoe, I wish to say to the fleet, England confides that every man will do his duty. You must be quick, for I have one more signal to make, which is for close action.
Aye, aye, sir.
And then there were the sheer, barking mad British explorers who'd spent so much time in the sun, they longed for cooler climes.
Well, here we are, sir. The first men to travel to the North Pole in a motorized vehicle. Why? The way the sun shines off yonder glaciers, the snow almost looks like sand.
I say, I think it is sand, Paddington.
Is it, Billington?
Might explain to that gentleman over there, Paddington.
Is that Lawrence of Arabia?
Judging by the theme music, I'd say it was.
I knew we took a wrong turning at Piccadilly Circus.
I told you not to rely on the sat-nav.
The sounds and smells of the Middle East. The fragrance of frankincense from Oman, which will fill our arena here tonight. The campfire singing under an endless cloak of stars filled me with delight.
We have many friends in the Middle East, including Bahrain and the Sultanate of Oman, to which the United Kingdom has been an ally, a partner, and a friend for hundreds of years. In traditional dress, please welcome the Royal Cavalry of Oman.
The Royal Cavalry of Oman grace us with a mesmerising performance. Now, they were founded in 1974, and tonight they will fill the arena with vibrant colours. If you're wondering about the bagpipes, by the way, interestingly, bagpipes originated in the Middle East and not in Scotland. Sorry, Scotland.
The Royal Cavalry escorted the Queen in a ceremonial head of state procession during her last visit to Oman in November 2010. The Royal Cavalry has been open to both women and men since 2001. In 2018, their all-female marching band took the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo by storm.
In this traditional display, a carriage will dispense frankincense, which it's a shame you can't smell it because it's gorgeous. And please don't be alarmed, we will see horses lying down in a sleeping position. This comes as a bit of a surprise, but it takes an enormous amount of work to train them to do it.
and shukran to the Royal Cavalry of Oman. What a glittering troop they were. From the heat of the Middle East to slightly chillier climes, snow and cold temperatures have always fascinated the British. And that's why at the last Winter Olympics, we won 2 medals, both in curling. A sport the British revere. A sport the British revere because competitors are required to sweep up after themselves during the event. And of course, there were our polar explorers, including Shackleton, Sir Edmund Hillary, and Scott's ill-fated expedition to Antarctica in 1930.
On reaching the South Pole, we discovered that we'd been beaten by the Norwegian, Roald Amundsen. On our return, our enemy has been the weather. A blizzard has kept us in our tent for more than a week, only 10 miles from our supplies. We shall stick it out to the end, but we are getting weaker, of course, and the end cannot be far. For God's sake, look after our people.
A tale of heroism, both English and Norwegian. King Harold V of Norway, a second cousin to Her Majesty the Queen. Please welcome the Majesty the King's Guard Band and Drill Team.
The Norwegian Kingsguard will deliver a performance of absolute precision this evening. It features a Norwegian speciality, the silent drill platoon. Ironically, it isn't completely silent.
I've heard it. I can hear it sometimes. A new band and drill platoon is recruited to the Kingsguard every year, with the best available musicians arriving from Norway's huge number of school bands. Their mascot is a real-life penguin who lives in Edinburgh Zoo. His name is Brigadier Sir Niels Olaf III.
Of course it is. He has a very close connection to Norway. As the Herald was saying, King Harold of Norway is her second cousin. And we know, because we've spoken to the troupe, they're incredibly proud to perform for the Queen tonight. The first part of the performance is designed as a tribute to Her Majesty. The second part celebrates Norwegian culture.
explorers took us all over the world, including the Silk Route to China. On the way there is a colourful and proud country, known around the globe as the Land of Fire. Please welcome the dancers, musicians, riders and horses from the Republic of Azerbaijan.
The Azerbaijan display team have travelled almost 4,000 miles to be here for Her Majesty tonight. The journey for the horses took an entire week.
This incredible routine includes a Sahaji dance performance as well as a quite spectacular horse and rider display.
Yeah, believe me, this really is spectacular and dangerous. There'll be horses, there'll be fire, some very high speeds. At one point, we are going to see a man going under his horse. Don't panic, it's not a loose saddle strap. He's supposed to be there.
I don't want to take all the credit, but it was my idea to put itching powder on their saddles and in their jodhpurs. One more time for the Azerbaijani equestrian and dance display!
After the break, performances by the Bollywood Co, the Top Secret Drum Corps and Greatest Showman's Kiala Settle, plus Tom Cruise.
One of the Queen's most important roles is head of the Commonwealth, an organisation now made up of 54 countries.
The difference in colour, race and creed is one of its strengths, really, that it is this enormous number of countries.
Royal tours and state visits have become ineffable features of international diplomacy. In 1953, the Queen embarked on a landmark 44,000-mile Commonwealth tour that took over 6 months.
I want to tell you all how much I look forward to my journey through Australia.
But her tours were not all about world leaders and big summits. They were primarily about meeting people.
There had been a heavy rainstorm, but the crowd soon forgot their soaking, and the Queen and Prince Philip stopped to chat informally with a number of them.
It was back to the more usual seagoing transport for the Queen's historic 1995 trip to South Africa after the end of apartheid. She awarded Nelson Mandela the Order of Merit, a tribute to his life of sacrifice and dedication to the country.
We have become one nation. The spirit of reconciliation is a shining example to the world.
One of the Queen's favourite places to visit is Canada.
Pierre Elliott Trudeau was your 4th Canadian Prime Minister. I am your 12th.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister of Canada, for making me feel so old.
To mark Her Majesty's service to the Commonwealth, a unique environmental project was launched.
It's called the Queen's Canopy, which is rather nice.
Well, indeed so.
The scheme encourages all the countries in the Commonwealth to plant forests for future generations.
It might change the climate again.
Well, it might indeed.
The last time the Queen travelled to a Commonwealth meeting was in Malta, 2015.
I feel enormously proud of what the Commonwealth has achieved, and all of it within my lifetime.
The Commonwealth is an enduring theme of the Queen's reign. It is unique and demonstrates the power of forgiveness for troubles past and the common history that we all share, showing that what unites us is stronger than what divides us. Members of the Commonwealth are represented here tonight, and to lead us in our celebration, we welcome a country celebrating 75 years of independence from the United Kingdom. Please welcome Bollywood Co, featuring Jazz Dami and Priti Vasani.
The Bollywood Co were founded in 2013. Their mission is to create unity in dance, showcasing Bollywood and other Indian dance styles in their truest form.
They performed across the world, from Trafalgar Square to Qatar and the Philippines. They've also appeared on Dancing on Ice.
Oh,
From the other side of the world comes another Commonwealth member, which this summer will celebrate its 60th year of political independence from the UK. Please welcome the Steel Band of the Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force.
The Trinidad and Tobago Defence Force Steel Orchestra are accompanied by 6 dancers and 3 specialist limbo dancers. It's not the first time they've performed for the Queen here at Windsor Castle. They were here for the Royal Tattoo back in 2009. The Queen first visited Trinidad and Tobago in 1966. She's since been back twice, in 85 and in 2009.
Joined now by the limbo dancers. A little bit of limbo makes everything better. In fact, it's a shame you can't see us because we're doing it up here. Gracious, Julie, you are bendy.
Defence Force! And now, from the warmth of the Caribbean to the snowy mountains of Switzerland, please welcome the brilliant top-secret Drum Corps.
This is quite a display. The Queen apparently is a huge fan of these drummers. They previously performed for her at her 90th birthday celebration here in Windsor. Top Secret Drum Corps aren't actually affiliated to the military. They were formed in '91 by 7 gifted young drummers who knew each other from the Basler Fasnacht, a huge carnival in Basel. They have a wide range of day jobs, including factory workers, bankers, civil servants and college students.
The drumming styles are adapted from military drumming exercises dating back to the Middle Ages. But they've added modern flavours, including Latin rhythms, juggling and twirling drumsticks. They are so good, they are considered worthy of a drum-off with the Royal Marines, who will be joining them very shortly. Here come the Royal Marines. This is it, the ultimate drum-off. These drummers are so skilled that despite being 2 completely separate groups, they managed to put this display together with little or no rehearsal, literally hitting the ground running. Don't worry, because after some spectacular drumming, they will become friends in the end, and they do finish up drumming together. We'll be back in a few minutes for a very special performance by the King's Troop and a spectacular closing ceremony with appearances from Dame Helen Mirren, Katherine Jenkins and Tom Cruise.
Each year, the King's Troop fires 4 royal salutes to honor members of the royal family. The unit also takes part in many other royal ceremonial duties, but what you're about to see is one of the most enthralling, thrilling, heart-in-the-mouth displays in the land, if not the world. It takes huge courage and discipline to do what they do, galloping with guns that were fired in the battles of the First World War, weighing 1.5 tons with no brakes. The drive demonstrates absolute trust between horse and rider. Under the command of Captain Mark Odell, parade commander and adjutant of the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery, riding his charger, Lord Firebrand, please welcome the musical drive of the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery.
King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery is comprised of 68 horses pulling 6 quick-fire howitzer guns from the First World War. The troop's named after the Queen's father, King George VI. She preserved the name, so this will be a very poignant moment for Her Majesty.
This performance showcases the military precision and manoeuvres used in the First World War to drive, guide and fire the guns around the battlefield at speed. Many of the manoeuvres are unchanged since the musical drive was first performed back in 1897. Uniforms might look like works of art, but they're actually armour lined in pigskin, constructed to protect the wearer from sword strikes.
The King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery will march past. Walk, march. Royal salute. Aye, right. Aye, front. Center. Return. Sort.
This is unbelievably fast stuff. No breaks, remember, and spare a thought for the guy running the hot dog stand on the other side of that exit. He has nerves of steel.
The musical drive of the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery. Our gallop through history is almost concluded, and it is most appropriate that the next act is conducted by someone who has been involved in all of Her Majesty's significant anniversaries over the past 10 years. It is the celebration's residence composer, Debbie Wiseman. Please. Debbie. But it wouldn't be complete without a celebration of a kingdom united. Your Majesty, my lords, ladies, and gentlemen, the United Kingdom.
We begin in Scotland! Please welcome the pipes and drums of the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards, the 4th Battalion of the Royal Regiment of Scotland, the Royal Air Force and the combined bands of the University Officer Training Corps, the dancers of the Royal Edinburgh Military Tattoo, with William Wallace screaming, "Freedom!" And the whole of Scotland asking themselves, what the hell was Mel Gibson thinking? Up the Scots! From Northern Ireland, Emerald Storm. From Wales, Catherine Jenkins.
a rousing medley of music from around the UK.
The Tri-Service Guard of Honour, as you might have caught a glimpse of, is now entering the arena once more, representing the Army, Navy and the RAF. Royal Navy there, the Army represented by the Coldstream Guards, RAF Queen's Colour Squadron, under the command tonight of Garrison Sergeant Major Andrew Stokes.
For 70 years, there's been one constant heartbeat of this nation, and that heart belongs to Her Majesty the Queen. As Commander-in-Chief, as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, head of the Commonwealth, leader of the nation we are proud to live in, we sometimes forget that our head of state is actually a person who feels as we do, enjoys the things we do, and is very much a mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, as well as being our monarch. But in 1953, on Coronation Day, there was room only for pomp, pageantry, and duty. One of Her Majesty's greatest personal pleasures is horses and ponies in all their guises. One thing the Queen takes great happiness from is her family's involvement in her love, whether it be racing, eventing, showing rare breeds, or just riding out here in Windsor Great Park. We could not let the moment pass without paying all our respects to a great man, His Royal Highness, the Duke of Edinburgh. His love of carriage driving has passed to his granddaughter, Lady Louise, who's driving His Royal Highness's exercise carriage tonight. Next comes the Diamond Jubilee State Coach. The crown on top of the coach is carved with timber from Lord Nelson's flagship, HMS Victory, and timber from the Tower of London, the Mary Rose, Lincoln Cathedral, and many, many others are inlaid into the interior of the coach. Following behind comes the Australian State Coach, presented to Her Majesty as a gift from the Australian people on the occasion of their bicentennial in 1988. Finally, the Charabanc, presented to Queen Victoria by Louis-Philippe of France. Queen Victoria used this carriage in London, Windsor, Balmoral, and at Osborne House for picnics and drives round the park. We now welcome a familiar sight here in Windsor, Her Majesty's Horses and Ponies. In celebration of Her Majesty's Platinum Jubilee, we bring forward some of our national rare breeds, all greys, beginning with, from the Royal Parks, Hampton Court, a pair of working Shire horses. Behind them, the Windsor Greys, Icon and Newark, tonight relieved from carriage duty. Representing Ireland, the Irish Draft, with 2 household cavalry state trumpeters. The Connemara, Lady Louise's riding pony, Dún Regent Marty. Next, we have Tuwesan, a purebred Arabian stallion, gifted to Her Majesty by His Majesty the King of Bahrain. To Scotland and the Highlands, 3 working ponies from the Balmoral estate. Next, 2 fell ponies representing England, recently pictured with Her Majesty, Bybeck Katie and Bybeck Nightingale. And from Wales, Starlight, a children's riding pony. And finally, not wanting to miss the party, Her Majesty's fell riding pony, 26-year-old Carlton Lima Emma, led by the Queen's stud groom and manager of 28 years, Terry Pendry. Your Majesty, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, these are the Queen's horses. To so many horses and ponies that give Her Majesty so much joy, we welcome the cast that's been so pleased to be here at this great event.
The performers who've entertained the Queen and all of us are returning to the arena for tonight's finale, which will feature one more very special appearance from Dame Helen Mirren. These will have been unforgettable memories for all of them. And now they are ready to take their final royal curtain call.
Tonight, we've been through 500 years of glorious happenings and history, accompanied by the Academy Voices of the University of Wales, Trinity St David Choir, and our fantastically hard-working orchestra of military musicians from the bands of Her Majesty's Royal Marines, the Royal Corps of Army Music, the Royal Air Force Music Services, and civilian musicians from the National Symphony Orchestra under the direction of the Principal Director of Music, Royal Marines, Lieutenant Colonel Jace Bircham. Thank you all.
Thank you all for joining us tonight, especially all of you in the Royal Box looking so well dressed. But a special thank you to the great British public who've shown up tonight in the back there wearing comfortable shoes and light rainwear. We salute you. Your Royal Highness, on behalf of everyone here, we'd like to very humbly thank you for choosing us over the state opening of Parliament. You did the right thing, and I won £5 in a bet with my local kebab shop owner in Ipswich. And also a big thank you to all of our hosts tonight. But the final word tonight belongs to another Queen Elizabeth.
Your Majesty, we started this celebration in my reign over 500 years ago as we now complete our gallop through history. I voice our loyalty and our appreciation on this celebration of Your Majesty's 70 years on the throne of the United Kingdom and of the many other nations where you are head of state. For all these years you have carried our nation. You have been at its heart, its drumbeat. You have given us purpose. And when situations have been challenging, your hope, guidance and leadership have been unswerving. So, I address you on behalf of all your loyal subjects. We commend and admire the way that you carry out the affairs of state with such dexterity and poise. I therefore speak on behalf of a grateful nation and Commonwealth when I give you our sincere and most loving thanks.
We'll remove headdress! Remove! Headdress! 3 cheers for Her Majesty the Queen! Hip hip! Hip hip! Hip hip! The parade will replace headdress! Replace! Headdress!
Escorting Her Majesty out of the arena are representatives of the Bahrain Defence Force Royal Guard Ceremonial Cavalry Unit, who will be led out by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, headed up by their officer in charge, Superintendent Kevin Fye.
So there we have it. The broad smiles on the face of the Canadian Mounties, perhaps saying it all. A magical ending to a spectacular night of pomp and pageantry. Dame Helen Mirren as Queen Elizabeth I, paying tribute and thanks to Queen Elizabeth II.
Now that's an arena packed full. So many of the performers and those in military service this evening, quite emotional to be invited to take part. It's been said a number of times that Her Majesty has never missed the Windsor Horse Show in 79 years. If there was anything on her calendar that she was going to make sure she attended, it was this one.
And for so many in the arena this evening, and for very many people watching at home, it would have been evident the delight that the Queen took to the performances before her. Some interesting expressions now and again.
She also gave us one of the greatest shrugs I've ever seen.
And here is Her Majesty making her way to the Range Rover. And in a few moments' time, we expect the Queen, once she's inside her car, to take a short drive around the arena so that those who are perhaps not sitting so close to her can get a glimpse before Her Majesty takes that short drive back home. This has all, of course, happened in effectively her back garden, the place she now calls home.
But a back garden absolutely filled with all of the things that she enjoys the most. It's been said that if you could have had a look inside the Queen's head, then a lot of what you've seen this evening would certainly have been here. The things that she enjoys the most. The countries of the United Kingdom represented. The Commonwealth represented. The military of which she's Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces. The music, the horses, of course, and I think that's where perhaps we might have seen her most gleeful smiles, when she was most animated, when she was watching the horses. We know she would have been scrutinising every move. And then family, with Lady Louise Windsor driving the carriage of the late Duke of Edinburgh, a really very poignant moment.
A very special atmosphere here this evening when you consider how far and wide, far-flung corners from the world people have travelled. All of them with their own memories of tonight, performing for Her Majesty on this historic occasion. You can see the household cavalry there, part of the guard for Her Majesty, one of the King Charles spaniels. It's part of the Crown Lost and Gained act in tonight's displays. And the great joy and pleasure that the Queen is evidently taking on this tour of the arena. few waves there for Catherine Jenkins and all those who play such beautiful music. The Tri-Service Orchestra.
I think we've delighted in seeing the delight on the Queen's face so many times as she's watched the proceedings this evening.
So what a way to begin the Platinum Jubilee celebrations, which are going to stretch before us in the coming weeks. Memorable images for all those who've joined us this evening, and especially for those who've been in the arena with Her Majesty this evening as she now makes her way back to the castle, just a short drive.
What a spectacular night, celebrating a remarkable 70 years since the Queen came to the throne. Marks a moment of real historical significance, the first time any British monarch has reached a Platinum Jubilee.
It has been a perfect tribute to an extraordinary figure and a reign that spanned 2 centuries, 14 prime ministers, and seen enormous change in Britain and abroad.
As the Queen prepares to make her way back to Windsor Castle, nothing left to do but to say I hope you enjoyed it. Good night.
Good night.
We would like to thank Her Majesty and all of you for coming. Please have a safe